record and start the recording process, because we gotta
All right.
we gotta actually get started now that it's freaking 8:45. Part of that was my fault. I had to get back in the swing of door dashing because I haven't for like a week almost, and I got a burrito, and then I had to eat the burrito. So I was like, who's going to be late? Mike was like, me. I'm like, good. We'll push the start date back. Or the start time back. Because I got to eat this burrito and I don't want to just shove it directly in my head. So yeah.
You're allowed to eat,
Thank goodness. But now I have burrito in my belly, and I'm like, oh, this is CP's not nighttime. Not to be confused with night CP's time. I don't know how they're different, but I'm sure they are. Also, why is it that some Steam games have massive updates with no patches, or with no patch notes? Like, I get home to Hitman 3 had like a 1.5 gig update, and I'm like, ooh, what's this? And there's no patch notes, there's nothing. Like, alright, thanks. Appreciate you. Glad y'all are with me. Alright, what is that? That's like 2 minutes. That should be good. So, let's get started. Oh, jam! Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mana Pool. This is episode 660. I really hope that's right. I didn't actually check. It is. Of the Mana Pool. And I am Chewie, and I'm a little scatterbrained because I just got back from an actual vacation, so I've probably forgotten how to do this. So apologies for all of the things that are going to go wrong this episode. And I have other dorks here too that didn't just get back from vacation because they did that before.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm Brian. I'm the lead rambler, tangent master of the group. I did not come back from vacation. I'd like to probably use a vacation. Oh, man. Vacation. You know what? I'm going to go on vacation. I'll see you guys later. Bye.
Didn't you just have a vacation relatively recently, or was that everyone but you?
It was June. I mean, I realize some people don't go on vacations all that often, but I feel like 4 months is enough to be like, all right, it's time to go again,
I'm pretty sure that the day you get back, you need another one, so...
August, September, yeah, 4 months.
Did you count those on your fingers? You did, didn't you?
I did. I only needed the one hand, though.
Oh my god. Next, dork.
All right. I'm Mike. I'm the rules guy and game lore guy. Guess I was in Hawaii just a few weeks ago. Man, seems like a while ago. It was nice.
See?
And I'm Dirk, the self-proclaimed greenest man alive and moral compass of the group. And I think the last vacation I took, like vacation, would also have been Hawaii. Of course, I did that right around spring break.
I was gonna say, you're a teacher. You don't get to have vacation.
Yeah, well, this summer definitely I did not, because I spent my time moving stuff around.
All right, then. So, this episode is... All right, this episode is going to piss some of you off, and I apologize for nothing. But while I was on vacation, Wizards of the Coast announced something that was just such pure, rarefied, like crystallized corporate greed that I couldn't even believe that it was real. And it was also so insanely bad that the same day it was announced that there were going to be Final Fantasy Magic cards, and nobody was talking about it.
Yeah, I I literally heard this one announcement and had to check the calendar to make sure it wasn't an April Fool's joke. Like, oh, we're just having another silver bordered set that's kind of silver bordered, kind of not, whatever. But maybe it's April 1st. Shoot, we need to do an April 1st show. Wait, it's not April. You're real about this. You guys are you sure? This feels, there's always someone out there for every product. Inevitably, there's always someone out there for every product. Maybe you've been waiting for the squirrel centric set, or maybe you want holographic full art lands that also turn into robots. I don't know. That there's a set for that maybe. Um but I have a very hard time with this that was announced, and I feel like tone deaf is the word that comes to mind. It's technically two words, but they're hyphenated. So
Yeah, I don't get tone deaf at all. Like tone deaf is like
Like too soon.
yeah, tone deaf is like telling a dirty joke at someone's funeral, like to the dead person's bereaved like father or something. You know.
I guess I my mentality for it was, as far as tone deaf, hey, we're making a big deal of the fact that this is our 30th anniversary. Gee gosh golly, 30 years of Magic. And what better way to do this? I think it was more, I thought tone deaf in the sheer amount of excitement that they seem to put behind making this announcement, in terms of, we're finally giving you what you've always wanted, sort of like, this is going to be amazing and it's great, and you should really, and then what it was. And I'm like, those are not the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
uh, so that's where I was coming from.
Like we're celebrating 30 years of Magic by this thing that no one can afford, and we're only printing a few of them anyway.
And
Yay.
and
What?
the thing, we need to talk about this thing, and not in ambiguities, because there's a lot to
I mean, I'm sure
unpack
most
here.
of the people listening have at least heard about what it is. We're talking about
Yeah,
the 30th anniversary edition
yeah.
thing.
But let me ask Dirk. Because Dirk is a practical person. Dirk,
Yep.
I know that we haven't played Magic, especially competitively, for a while, but you have spent real hard-earned cash on Magic products, correct?
That is correct.
Great. Thank you for following my leading question. Now on direct.
But
Um,
objection?
it's sustained, but so you're not afraid to do that. Now you have real life, things to buy, like food and shelter and all that. But if you're really into this, you're not afraid to buy it. Uh, Let me ask you this very basic question. If you found out that there was a magic product that you could buy, follow me here, and it was going to guarantee you some very, very good magic cards, like very hard to get magic cards, but it was going to be very expensive, you would maybe consider getting it depending on your situation.
Yep. Potentially.
Okay. Now, what if you weren't guaranteed to get those cards, but they're in a pool of other cards just like a normal set? What if that, like, they show you, oh, you can get this, but it turns out that's one of however many hundred of cards? Does it start to dampen your enthusiasm a bit?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what if I told you that you were getting 4 boosters worth of that set? Maybe from the price range you were thinking, oh, I'll get one of each of these cards, but you're getting 4 boosters, and again, they're random. Starting to go down a little bit more?
I'd be up for 4 boosters of something with that.
Okay.
I
And
That's rare and everything, but again, that
and
depends on
and
the price.
and now it's $1,000.
Yeah.
And none of the stuff you get is tournament legal.
And that's where I was going. Thank you for jumping ahead. Chewie beat me to it.
Dude, you were taking so long to make a very simple point. Like, you're killing me here.
Everything. Everything you are spending a grand on. And I'm just like, a grand is gold bordered, which isn't even silver bordered. It's gold bordered and has an alternate card backing just to show you can't actually play with this. You can play with it at home. That's great. You can't play with it in any sanctioned event. That doesn't allow for proxies, in which case, if you want a Black Lotus proxy, I have some spare, spare paper here and a pen, and you write Black Lotus on it. And you don't spend $1,000 on a chance to get one.
Okay, so...
Holy crap, dude.
So, the point Brian is laboring here. Okay, let's go over what the 30th anniversary is. So, yeah, it's beta. They're reprinting beta, most of it. And they're going to have modern fonts, or modern fonts, Jesus Christ. Modern frames, a non-tournament legal card back, and some of them will be in retro frames with updated, an updated look, like updated wording, updated templating, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's $999 for 4 boosters.
Yeah.
2 of the cards in every booster will be basic lands. Now, I know a lot of people love their fancy basic lands, but Jesus Christ.
$1,000. You can't get away from this. I'm just $1,000 for 4 boosters of cards that you cannot.
For 60 cards? Is there 15 in a pack?
Yeah.
60 cards in quotations. Yes.
Yeah, and like I said, they have a non-standard Magic back. So, and they're not tournament legal in any way, which correct me if I'm wrong. I know that like baseball cards and sports cards and whatnot have value based solely on their rarity because they don't have any function other than being collectible. But in Magic, the vast majority of pricing is based on functionality and rarity. So like if a card is really popular in a given format, that drives demand up, so price goes up.
Yeah. You'll have uncommons that might be as much as, $2. Like recently printed uncommons be as much as $2. And there have been times when uncommons from the past are, $30 to $50 depending on what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aether Vial, once upon a time, was an uncommon. So,
but there's no functionality with these. Now, there will be. So there are. It turns out that you remember the collector's edition, the gold bordered cards.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that some of those actually have value, and lots of it. Like apparently, the gold bordered Black Lotus is going for 4 digits. Because there are a couple of non-WotC sanctioned formats that allow the gold bordered cards. Like, apparently,
there are plenty of non-sanctioned events out there, legacy events and vintage events that allow some number of proxies.
But we're not talking proxies yet. We're talking the gold bordered non-tournament legal versions of these cards specifically.
Well, I mean, people use them as proxies since they're not Magic cards. Technically.
And again,
okay, Mike, I'm going to come to your house and kill you.
Well, then I don't know where you're going with this.
My point is that Old School, it was one that was pointed out to me, and also apparently Canlander, which I think is Canadian Highlander or whatever, specifically allow the use of the gold bordered cards, but not other proxies.
Huh. That's
kind of stupid considering what they. No, never mind. I get
mean,
how it fits into what they say.
Yeah. So, okay. Barring these few, like, niche formats that will probably end up allowing these to be legal, like, these cards aren't going to be legal in Vintage or Legacy or any of that. So if you crack open, your new dual land, congratulations. Like, you could have written proxy dual land on a basic land and have the same amount of tournament legality, which is 0. So I legitimately don't understand this product in any way.
And you can't tell me like there's some things that like the from the vault or whatever, they're given this sort of special treatment. So maybe I don't think they cost that much to make, but there's a specialized, way to make this. Certain things generally cost more when they cost more to produce, right? But there's nothing about this that screams to me anyway, oh, this is costing us that much more to make, so therefore we have to have this stupid price point.
Well,
this
yeah,
is just absolutely an amount that they thought they could charge.
Yeah, this is
I'm
not going to say it's 0 effort, because they did mention that they've updated all the wording, which is already in Oracle, and they did make the 2 frames for each one, so that's 2 art files that they had to have. And
they preserved the words, tap to add blah on the basic lands, which made me kind of sad that they didn't preserve the wall of text that used to be on the dual lands.
Right? But like, oh, and they also recropped some of the art, I guess. I think they said. But it's 0 effort.
Ratio of the art box is different.
Yeah. But let's be real, it's 0 effort. Like there's no. Oh, they did bring back the old white mana symbol for the retro frames. That's actually a nice touch. I'll give them that.
Did they do all the other symbols or just that one?
I think that's the one that they mentioned here.
I wonder why just that one.
Well, because it's completely different. Like, others are basically the same.
Yeah.
Like, you remember it was all goopy, and now it's all lightning-y. But anyway, so yeah. Now this episode is not just about the 30th anniversary thing here, but this is what kicked this whole idea off. And I legitimately don't. The only purpose I can think of for this is let's suck as much money out of our players as we can. What's the upper limit? I don't know, $1,000? Why not? We'll see if they'll bite. And they will. That's the problem. I have been saying for years and years, Magic players are stupid. If you put something shiny in front of them, they'll buy it, whether they need it or not. And I have... Do what?
Or at least want it.
Yeah. And I have zero doubt that this is going to sell out immediately. And of course, this isn't going through stores or anything. You buy this directly from WotC, just like you do the secret layers, because they don't want to share any of that sweet, sweet profit.
Now, let me be clear on my position. I don't mind WotC making money because they have to. Sometimes when we get in these conversations, not the 4 of us, but when I get in these conversations with other people are very much like, "Wow, they're so greedy," and I'm like, "Yeah, but that's part of the function. A corporation exists to do two things. And it must do these two things. It can do other things, but it must do these two things, or it fails to exist. It must make a profit, and it must provide some sort of service. And that service can be a product or it can be a purely service driven industry. If it fails to do those two things, then it will cease to exist. If it fails to provide a product, then the profit will follow. If it gives a great service but it doesn't make money, it's going to shut down unless government subsidies, etc. In which case, it's still earning some sort of profit. It has to do those two things. I don't have a problem with Wizards making money. It has to, but there's always the question of how are you earning this money? I mean, when I'm in court, the judge very much cares about, hey, Brian, is your client earning money, legitimately or not legitimately? And that's all I can say about that on this show. But let's just say that the means are super important, not just the ends. And so here, when I look at this and I'm like, wow, this is so over the top. You could have charged $200 and I'd be like, wow, that's too expensive for me. Thanks, but no thanks. But I get it. And I still think it would sell well. I think it would do pretty good. Somebody might be able to scrape up the money to be like, look at me. I'm going to buy this one and like maybe hold on to it forever as like a treasured possession or something. But they had to go straight to the grand. And I'm like, all right, greed as a corporation is one thing, but you're being super blatantly obvious about it, and I just feel like it's Chewie. You're on the internet. Has the reaction to this been fairly negative, to put it
Yeah.
mildly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only
So-
positive reaction I've seen is from Brian Kibler, of all people, who was like, it's fine. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, I did read that response through a link in another article that one of you had put up, and further down he responded to himself, basically saying, some of you are reading a lot into this. Yeah, I agree, it's stupidly expensive, but I think the product's fine. But I mean, he could have, if that's what he really wanted to say, I think it would have been easy for him to say that initially.
Like, for anyone who like Brian said, corporations have to make money. The problem is here, you know what? I'm even going to show this on screen. Well, I would if I had bothered to set that up. Hang on. I wasn't expecting to show the screen on this stream. Yeah, here we go. Hasbro, on the Hasbro Investors website, like the headline of this is Hasbro announces plan to grow profit 50% over next 3 years. Not revenue, profit. 50%. Now, on Monday Night Magic, we covered lots of Hasbro investor calls over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And guess where their main source of income is when there's not a Transformers movie?
Yeah, it's Wizards of the Coast.
It's Wizards of the Coast. Excuse me. So, like, this was also the same day, by the way, this announcement.
Mm-hmm.
And the timing on this is just too obvious. Like Brian said, they're being a little blatant about it. They're
saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah.
Like you can't announce a product that's $1,000 for 60 random cards. 12 of which, no. 8 of which, mind you, are basic lands guaranteed. And in the same breath announced, hey, we're trying to grow our profit 50% over the next 3 years. Like,
Yeah. Are you trying to do it by making, the rest of the company better, or are you trying to do it by doing more blatantly high margin stuff like this?
yeah. And like later here in this, they announced that Magic the Gathering is on track to become its first $1 billion brand. So
That's cool.
that's like, it's obvious they're leaning on Magic to make them all of the money, as James Stephanie Sterling says all the time. The problem with corporations like this is not just that they want to make lots of money, they want to make all the money. Like, you cannot have unlimited upward growth. Eventually, you've got to ease up and hit a plateau. But try telling that to investors anywhere ever. Because everybody wants to see the line go up, regardless of what it takes to do it. And, yeah. Like, the problem here is that they've turned into an evil corporation, like EA or Ubisoft. Well, no, Ubisoft is an evil corporation because of all the sexual harassment that was covered up for years and years and years. So that doesn't have anything to do with profit. But they're like a freaking freemium mobile developer who's just like, let's just suck as much money out of them as we can. And they're getting more and more obvious about it as the years go on, which leads me to the point of this episode, which is I wanted to point out some of these bits here over the years and just discuss them. The bits over the years where WotC has just started leaning into the profit above all else thing.
Yeah.
And so I asked Twitter and Discord after coming up with a few things myself. And by the way, thanks to JT Huffy and Cardboard Samurai for those resubs, by the way. I didn't call those out earlier. But like, there's a lot. So in no particular order, in any way, I'm just gonna go down the list in the order that I wrote them down.
Yeah. These are not chronological.
Yeah, I wish they were chronological, because then we would see them ramping up as more and more frequent. But I don't have the time or resources to try to figure out what order all this stuff happened in. So sorry about that. But okay, most of this, like I said, came from you guys on Twitter and Discord. So we've got when you remember when Mythics were announced, they were like, these are not going to be tournament staples. They're just going to be cool cards. And there were a bunch of just cool, powerful, and bad cards at Mythic, right?
I recall, I don't know that they were all bad, but they were the cool cards. They were supposed to sell the set. And we've had this discussion a couple times, especially in Mythic Conscription. Check out other episodes with that tag.
In fact, after the Kamigawa episode, we did a whole episode about what Mythics were.
Right. But keep in mind, so what were some of the first Mythics? Well, they've pretty much always been Planeswalkers. Now, the very first Planeswalkers, the original 5, were rare because they were in Lorwyn. They debuted a year before Mythic Rarity started, which was in Shards of Alara block. And so, like, Red White Ajani was one of the first Mythics. I think I don't remember. Elspeth, OG Elspeth was one of the first Mythics, right? So you had Planeswalkers, but you also had other neat, powerful effects, that were kind of iconic. Big effects, splashy effects.
There were a bunch that were just bad too.
I'm looking at the original set from I'm looking at the original set of Mythics from Shards of Alara, and we have a Johnny Vengeant and Elspeth Knight Errant, so those are good cards. I think Rafik of the Many might have been standard playable. I don't remember.
He was.
I think so.
I think he was. Yeah.
Okay, but otherwise, it's like good commander cards and Lich's Mirror, but
that's the bad one that I was thinking of, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah. So I'm like they're not like all bad. They don't have to be like define. Oh, it's Mythic, it's bad. But they weren't afraid to print bad cards at Mythic because Mythic, kind of like the rarity, not only serves the function of okay, their people are going to chase them more, but it also for limited purposes. Like if Lich's Mirror is an uncommon, poor drafters, just poor drafters, you know. So, but yeah, they were fun cards. They were big cards to help sell the set. They were iconic characters, and they could push the envelope not so much in terms of power level, but more in terms of like design space.
Yeah.
Do
And at
you
at
remember
some point that changed. I think it was
you?
gradually. Like a couple people pointed out Jace the Mind Sculptor as where the problem started, but he was a planeswalker and all planeswalkers were mythic. So that one I sort of
He was
I
a planeswalker. All planeswalkers were mythic, and he was supposed to be pushed because they were again defining new card space. If you remember, he was the first planeswalker with 4 abilities, so that one was kind of
Yeah,
uh,
Lotus Cobra was a mythic in the same block.
yeah.
yeah.
Lotus Cobra came out in Zendikar, and to my recollection, was the first mythic that people really went, "Wait, why is this mythic?" Because it was a 2 mana utility creature, and people were like, "Eh," and it was pretty much understood. This is mythic for power level, and is mythic to make it more desirable, make it a little harder to get. So, and that was out a couple months before. Was it World Wake where Jace was?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the fact is, as egregious as some people found Lotus Cobra, and that could be its own discussion. We have other things to talk about whether or not Lotus Cobra deserves Mythic or not. It's been reprinted at Rare, right?
Has
So
it?
Yes.
yeah. So hey, that's good. But the fact that we're dealing with like one, should this be mythic, should it not, at a time, that's significant to me. Because okay, this mythic rarity at this point had been out for about 2 years, maybe 3 years. So I have to check the timeline. They're kind of getting a feel for it. A blip here, a blip there, that's one thing. When it becomes more constant, that's more of an issue.
Yeah, and it's clear that over the years, more and more cards that were gonna be tournament staples were just shoved up to rare to mythic
Yeah.
for seemingly no reason other than to make it a chase card. Now
Yeah.
again,
Or
we can't speak to absolutes about the intentions of Wizards of the Coast, but I'm making an educated guess fueled by my own cynicism here.
right,
Well,
right.
I wouldn't say for no reason. I mean, they are just powerful cards. And I guess it kind of got shifted to the progression of, commons are one thing, uncommons are more powerful, rares are more powerful than that, and mythics more powerful than that. So instead of like the original instead of the way they were originally marketed, they fell into that, step up, more rarity equals more better.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you could look at not to bring this whole argument back up again entirely, but Rise of the Eldrazi, or no, it might have been the next set. Basically, when Bane Slayer Angel entered the picture at the same rarity, not at the same cost and type and everything as Sarah Angel, which was also in the set, except Sarah Angel is Sarah Angel 4/4 for 5 with flying and vigilance, and Sarah Angel at the same cost is a 5/5 with more relevant abilities and is a mythic instead of uncommon. This card is better, because it's mythic, not it's mythic because it's better. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, Bane Slayer, which was M10, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that was when Sarah Angel got downgraded from rare to uncommon.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, yeah, Bane Slayer was one of the first instances of a card that I remember talking about a lot anyway on, like, Monday Night Magic, of a card that was just everywhere that everyone had to have if you were going to play Standard.
Yeah. And that Bane Slayer Angel came out 1 year in M10. Guess what was in M11?
The Titans.
The Titans. 5. And they all kind of came and went. I think Primeval pretty much stuck around forever that it was legal, but every single other one had its day in the sun for some amount of time. I remember the white one being kind of really interesting with some combo decks, like clone effects. But yeah. So we've gone from like Lotus Cobra, like should this be mythic? Maybe, to into Jace, into Bane Slayer, into Titans, and it's just it's a lot.
Yeah. So okay, that's the first one.
Yeah.
Another thing that was brought up on Twitter was about Arena, and they pointed out that developing features in Arena seems to be all about ways to get more money out of you. Cosmetics, the rewards for the premium season things, whatever that is, alchemy, and even little things like the UI, the user interface being made in such a way that the defaults for the way that looks push people to play certain formats while making other formats harder to find. Like, you might think that that's nothing. It's really not. It's a proven method to make people do what you want by making the thing that you don't want them to do harder to get to. And the development of features in Arena seems to be all about that instead of things like, the example used was friend list functionality, which, as someone who doesn't play Arena, are friends lists still not working or not a thing?
I play Arena basically daily, but I don't really keep an active friends list. So question mark. Because there's so much, like, emotes are pretty much the only way to communicate, and because I know you guys don't play, I generally don't cultivate a friends list. So, but I will say this for Arena: I am strictly free to play, and I have found that getting cards for me is not the issue because I've saved up a bajillion wild cards, and I don't play a whole lot competitively. So, when I do really need to craft a deck, I draft a whole lot, and then whatever I don't draft, I make. But I was noticing this. Every set there is a mastery tree, and how this works is as you gain experience, you unlock certain rewards over the course of a season, and every set, the release of a set is basically the start of a new season, right?
Yeah.
And
It's
there's
what's
two
known
different
in every other game as like a battle pass or a season pass
you
or
got it.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
You got it. And there's the free one, and then there's the locked one. And because I'm free to play, because I tend to dabble in a lot of different games, I only have the free one. And every couple levels in experience, you get a little orb, and you can put it into the mastery tree. And how that works is you kind of pick a lane, and they're all split up by color generally, and you put the orb in there, and you progress along. Think of like a skill tree. You're investing that, except it's cosmetics. So, say for this one, for Dominaria United, I like some of the options on the black tree. I'm probably going to play with them more often, so I'm building up that one. But I noticed over the last couple sets that I don't ever seem to be completing any of these, even just on one color, no matter how much I play. And so maybe like a week or so ago, I went into the mastery and I started counting up along the free path, and I realized that after a certain level on the free path, you don't get any more orbs. You might get a couple other things, you get exactly one. You're missing one orb to fully complete a single color. Not to mention
That is
going
so
into
dirty.
without even going in. God forbid you go into any other colors. And I'm like, man, that just because of course as you go along, usually it's the more desirable cards that. So I figured out I'm on the black path. I have unlocked the new braids as a card back, which is pretty sweet. But I will not be able to unlock the cosmetic Shieldred art for my Shieldred, like X number of copies of Shieldred, because that's the last one. Because that's probably the one that most people want. Son of a gun.
Wow.
So I either and now I could very much care less about what my cards look like because it's digital. And for me, personally, not an issue. It's not going to play any different. But for some people, that will probably be enough to make them spend 15, 20. But I haven't bought it. I don't know how much the mastery pass is. Um, that may be enough to push them over. But yeah, when I did that math, I was like, son of a wow,
Yeah,
that's
the one short is just a dick move. Like
yeah.
that's got to be deliberate to
And
make
it
people
it
go and give
it
them
hasn't always
the
been that
money.
way. It hasn't because there's been other sets where I've been able to, at least unlock. I basically would pick the color that I'm like, oh, these are the cards I'm probably going to play the most. Let me go with those. But yeah,
Yeah, that's brutal.
yeah,
But yeah, chat has informed me that when they first implement or introduce the friends list, there's nothing to do other than blind challenges. Now there's actually a functioning chat, and someone else in the chat says, "I didn't even know there was a functioning chat." So
it did
yeah,
not know either. Yeah,
but yeah, I do remember before there was a friends list that did anything, they were pushing cosmetics hard. We're like, yeah, get the money before you make it work.
yeah, like the whole pets thing. Well, I think at one point there 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 was the introduction to pets, and there was a pet that broke the game, where like if you clicked on it, like it would just spam out or something. I remember this being a thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
so
because if
good
one
job,
person,
guys.
like, if you clicked on it to do the thing, for some reason your opponent would also see it happen. So it could be used to break the game on your opponent's side.
Yeah, I remember that.
Nice question mark. Yeah. So uh, it's like the perfect storm of like, gotta buy this cosmetic that might also give you break the game for you.
Lord. So okay, moving on. Someone mentioned, I think this was on Twitter, from the vault, and I never saw the from the vaults as like a blatant money grab. I think it was Bill and Clues who were like, it's more of a thing for to help support stores.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, because they were, I mean, the MSRPs were reasonable, for what you were getting, a set of nice collectible cards in a nice box. I think the first one, Dragons, was even in sold in places other than LGSs, but they pulled that back after for all the rest of them. But yeah, that was for something where, like you said, a gift to stores. They could take it, they could, mark it up how they saw fit based on what was in it and get some money. And they weren't too unreasonable. Like for some of them, even for some of them, at the time, even paying $100 was well worth it considering what was in it. Now it's especially well worth it considering, like, for example, I think the highest example is the Mox Diamond from the Vault Relics is like $800 or something ridiculous like that.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Someone else pointed out the introducing an extra set every year called the Draft Innovation set, which I don't know.
It definitely
I
made it
mean,
harder to keep up with stuff.
That is true.
But
And
the Draft Innovation set did introduce some really cool stuff. Like that's where you have Conspiracy
yeah, conspiracy was what I
and
was
Battle
thinking of.
Bond.
and Battle Bond for
Yeah.
the two-headed giant stuff. Yeah.
Hmm.
Like that one from a content creator's perspective, it's a large pain in the ass. Like, oh Jesus, another set every year, just kill me.
That that's about the time that I feel like we talk about never-ending preview season,
Hmm.
but it didn't always used to be that way. It didn't. We had time between previews to explore concepts and things like that, and they started filling that time with other products. Used to So it used to be, you had the three sets in a block in a core set was how it was when I started playing. I know that there's been other iterations, but that's how it was for a significant part of Magic's life. But
Back in
then
my day, we didn't even get one
back
core set a year.
there you go. But then they started doing some of the supplemental sets. Like, was Cold Snap a supplemental set? It was also in standard, so I feel like it was outside of the usual.
Yeah,
Uh,
Cold Snap was just was the extra set that year, but it
right,
happened to be, but they had it included in standard.
right. So you start with that, and again, kind of like with that's a blip. That's okay. That's a one of sort of thing. And then you start throwing out some other things. And it's one thing they started doing the commander decks where, all right, there's this collection of cards, Jace versus Chandra. These are cards that Jace would use. These are cards that Chandra would use.
Those are the dual
Uh,
deck.
it it didn't dual decks. Thank you. And dual decks did not change the set legality of those cards, and I think that's important because that actually can help. That can help decrease demand because okay, maybe you have this card and it's in standard or it's just available, it's just in modern or legacy, but here's more copies of it, right? Um and plus you can play them against each other. But those did not just automatically enter standard, correct? Dual decks were not
Correct. Yeah. Oh, there
right.
was this one FNM where I was walking around. I was watching people play. I was like, "Oh, you guys already done with your matches?" Because I saw one of them was playing a deck from the recent dual deck that came out. It's like, no, this is game two, and I'm like,
Bruh.
what? Yeah. So other than the basic lands, I think there were like literally two cards in his deck that were legal and standard. I'm like, dude, you got to figure something out.
Yeah, I hate to tell you because they're probably thinking, "Oh, I just bought this. I can play this. It's a ready-made
Uh-huh.
deck." Um, but but I didn't mind dual decks. But it starts your if long ago. First of all, I've never owned one of every card anyway. Period. That was never my goal. But even just keeping up with standard, I learned long ago. You can't have everything, and that's the issue with some people is they want to have everything. But they start doing like dual decks in some of those, and that's not bad. But then you start doing whole sets like Conspiracy. And don't get me wrong, I love Conspiracy. I enjoy Battle Bond. But when you have new sets, then the collector starts to go, okay, well, I can't just go out and like when I buy a dual deck or I buy a commander deck, I know I'm getting X cards. Uh, the whole kerfuffle with the commander decks and True Name Nemesis, for example. People were like, that was the only dual deck that was selling out and was selling out everywhere, but people would buy it and turn around. I have 4 copies of True Name Nemesis, and I'm never getting rid of them because I had to find those for an arm and a leg. But it was something that I went out and did. But at least I knew it. But with a set, there's no guarantee. So you have to invest more in it if that's what you want, or you go buy singles, whatever. But then you start, but it has kind of over the last couple of years increased in intensity to the point that I think Chewie said getting ready for this show, like commander sets or products with every set release now, right?
Yeah,
with
I mean, I
exclusive
even.
cards.
with exclusive cards.
Mhm.
Yeah, which I remember when they started this again a couple of years ago. There was a like, ooh, are these going to be really in demand? But they showed us what it was, and it was like stupidly overpriced stuff, like a burn spell that could get this version of Chandra, which was not the version of Chandra anybody was going to be playing.
You're
So
getting your stuff confused, Brian. That was something else
Yeah,
okay,
entirely.
that's another
okay,
thing.
all right. Sorry. So, but that's okay. So that's part of the issue is that I can't even keep track of this stuff now, and I guess that's not anybody else's issue that Brian can't. But I'm just saying, there's so much here, I can't even keep it straight. So
Yeah. So let's keep going. So
yeah,
I don't think the extra set every year though is one of the slides into evil corporate nonsense. Like I think that they did one at some point and were like, oh, people like this. We'll just make this a thing now. And also more money, but you know.
Yeah, it's a little more forgivable for like when they're doing things like the draft innovation stuff, where they're doing it to appeal to a. They're doing it to give something, more fun to do to a certain part of the player base.
Yeah, like something that's different that's not been done before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that was mentioned was the the Commander's Arsenal, which I think Mike had the best reaction to this. What did you say it was, Mike?
That was something where they just had the commander stuff that they started to do was so popular, they weren't really ready with another product when that time of year came around the next years. So they just had to shovel something out the door really fast. Just have something on the shelves for
Yeah,
people to go get
they
and
threw it
keep the
together last
momentum.
minute.
Uh
Oh
huh.
crap. We
Yeah, because they didn't have the time or resources to design a whole nother set of decks.
yeah. So I don't think that counts either. That was more of a oh, people want we don't have
Yeah, they didn't want to miss the opportunity to try to keep the momentum going.
yeah. Now a thing that was mentioned that really now this was a long time ago, so I don't think it's part of the same slide into evil corporation status. But when they stopped the player rewards program,
That was sad.
now the player rewards program was a thing that does exactly what it says. It rewarded people for playing in sanctioned events, and they would just send you cool cards, like
yeah,
to your house. Here you go. Here's
Yep,
some
in the
stuff.
mail. Hmm.
And like that was awesome, but when they stopped it, and I know this is going to sound like I'm complaining that we're not getting free stuff anymore. And okay, like to some extent, yeah, I never played enough sanctioned events for the player rewards to really, mean anything to me personally.
Hmm.
I was always lucky if I hit the first tier of here you get new cards. I usually just got the base of what everyone got, which was, a couple of random nonsense. Except for that time there's apparently a glitch in the system and I got the full art Wrath or Damnation or whichever one it was.
They did 3 of those. They did one for Wrath, they did one for Day of Judgment, and they did one for Damnation.
Yeah, I don't remember which one I got, but I was like, I haven't done enough events for this, but I'm keeping it. Like, I think we all got that one.
oh,
Yeah, I think we did. I have one of each of those somehow.
But like I seem to recall that the justification for stopping their player rewards card was it's too expensive. Like there's too many players now, we just can't justify giving away all this stuff. Meanwhile, Hasbro, years later, Hasbro's trying to increase profits by 50%. A similar thing.
I can imagine it did start to get to be hell organizing all those mailings.
There are entire industries that do just that. You just get them to do it. Like,
Oh yeah, but they were probably still trying to do it in house and just give up.
probably. But on a similar note was when they were doing like miserably awful prize payouts for tournaments. You know, GPs where unless you won, it wasn't worth the trip, and you know only one person's gonna win. And even more recently, God, this was so stupid. At the big Magic 30 event that's coming up in Vegas, there's a cosplay contest. And the best in show winner was going to get a $200 gift card to Joanne Fabrics.
I heard about it, and I told myself I was mishearing it.
Like that was their grand prize. Now, mind you, any sort of cosplay that is going to win a best in show at a cosplay contest costs stupid amounts of money.
Yeah. Much more than $200.
And most of these cosplayers have to take special care and in some cases shipping to get these costumes to the to the event in the first place. Al just said, and an extra 10 minutes in the ball pit.
Yay!
And like they were publicly shamed for this because this is their big 30th anniversary event that they're putting all of the effort into, and the cosplay contest was clearly just like a throwaway idea. Oh, we'll just give them, I don't know, like they like fabric, right? Give them a gift card to Joanne. Yeah. Where meanwhile at like a League of Legends big event thing, you know, the top prize was like $5,000 or something. Christine Sprankle was so disgusted, she said on Twitter, you know what? I'll just give $1,000 to Best in Show because that's embarrassing. WotC has since recanted, and now they're massive money prizes for first place and whoever else. And like, that's really good. But so many times over the years, WotC has done bare minimum, been publicly shamed for it, and then decided, oh, here. And that always seems to be the case. Like, with pricing on things on Moto and Arena, they'll give you the highest price, and when everybody freaks out, they go, oh, okay, we're going to take it back, which makes them look good. But they set the price in the first place. Like, they deliberately picked the most expensive one, and then if we balked, they would lower it. They could have picked the lower one in the first place.
It might very well be part of its strategy. You know, what do you think you can get away with? Go one more to see if you can get lucky, and then just see what people will stand for.
Yeah, and it has to be a strategy because it happened for several years. It happened so many times in so many different ways that obviously I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but I did Monday Night Magic for many, many years. And I had to say this over and over and over, that WotC is going to do it the wrong way, and then when we complain, they'll fix it. And at some point, like, we're going to have to just not accept that anymore. But again, Magic players are stupid, and we keep going, yay, they back down. And that's as far as they get, not realizing that this is their strategy. They're going to try to get you for as much as they can, and then when you complain, they'll back off to the one they wanted in the first place, and you'll accept it because they started with a higher offer, you know.
It's the used car sales approach.
It is. But
except at least with used car salesmen, and I don't mean any disrespect toward any that are listening, but you know what it is going in. You're like, oh, you know, this is part of the experience.
I mean, it's not even used cars. It's new cars, too. There's massive markups on those for literally just for money. Let's see. Okay, here's another old one. The Alara Block foil boosters. Y'all remember those?
Yeah, I do. I think I bought one, too.
I think those were an early hey, is this a thing we can get away with? And it turns out, no.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
it was a nice little, $15 amusement. But after I opened it, I'm like, okay, wow, this was really just literally a random booster pack, except everything is foil. So
Yeah.
now
I
I have one foil card that maybe I will use.
think of it as the precursor to set boosters, perhaps.
Hmm.
Or collector boosters, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We'll get to that in a minute too. Okay, those are the older ones. So I noticed while I was writing down my list of things that bothered me about WotC's business practices, most of it involved hard to get exclusive cards.
Hmm.
Like, I have said many times that I despise the way secret layers are marketed. Like, they are 100% built to prey on people's FOMO. FOMO, for those of you that don't know, is fear of missing out. And lots of companies use it to get you to feel like you have to give them money right now. And in the case of secret layers, that was literally it. Like, all right, you have 24 hours to decide if you can afford this and if you want it, and give us money now. They seem to have eased up on the 24-hour limit in recent years.
Yeah, they opened up the window a lot.
But it's still an extremely limited window to determine. And they give you no warning. They're like, hey, here's 8 secret layers that all dropped right now. They'll be here for a week. Give us money. Like,
In the beginning, that is what they did. They also give fair notice now.
oh, they do?
Hmm. Yeah, I get the emails well in advance of the things dropping.
How advanced are we talking here?
Well, that's hard to gauge because at this point I read them and immediately forget about them because I don't care about what they're selling.
That's a good point.
But there are some that give multiple weeks notice.
Okay.
But one of the differences now, as opposed to what they used to do, is now you have these cards that have actually unique.
Oh wait, we're not there yet.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's related, but
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
getting
like
that.
at the very beginning, they were much more aggressive, and but they had some pretty interesting stuff out there. Like one of the first things they did was the Year of the Rat thing, and that got me. I'm a Zodiac rat, and the cards in there were cool, and I'm like, yeah, so I got it. It's like, why not? And it's something I like, and it's cool, and it's awesome. And then there was one where they had like some fancy Thalias, and I was like, oh, this is a fancy versions of like a good card that I could actually put in a modern or legacy deck if I want to play that. That'd be cool. So I got those. And then I had to talk myself down from the next several rounds because I'm looking like, okay, these do look cool and they are limited, but what would I do with them, and why do I actually want them? And I had to talk myself down from them until eventually I was able to get myself into, okay, no, you only have to really pay attention to these if you actually care about what it is.
Yeah. And originally, like I said, I despise the way the secret layers are marketed. Their whole like way that they're sold, direct from WotC, so WotC doesn't have to share that sweet profit.
Mm-hmm.
And then it takes forever to actually get the damn things you ordered. I don't know if that's been improved yet, but I know for a very long time nobody was getting any secret layers that they ordered until 2 or 3 other secret layers had gone by. But at the beginning, they were all just fancy versions of existing cards, and I have no problem with that in and of itself. Like, that is, quote, not for me. We'll get into not for me more in a bit, but that's for people who want to pimp out things, and I have never been a pimp out things guy. Like, I'll grab whatever like revised ass white bordered basic lands if they're in arm's reach and put them in my deck. I don't care. They're there to tap for mana. They're not there to impress people. So As soon as I find black bordered ones, though, those white bordered ones are right out. I'm not a monster. But like, I never have understood pimping out the deck. But then I've also been broke most of my life. Like, I don't have money to burn on a shiny version of a card that does literally the same thing as this old ass beat to death version that I have. So that probably is coloring my perception of this a bit. Like, I can't afford them, so I don't want them. Whereas if I could afford them, I probably still wouldn't want them, but it's much more aggressively not wanting them in my with my lack of money to burn.
Yeah.
So that's just not for me. But then that all changed with The Walking Dead Secret Lair, which Brian was getting to, where like my opinion on Secret Lairs was already low, and then it plummeted down to the Earth's core when Secret Lairs, which are already very limited and built exclusively to prey on FOMO, and the money goes directly to WotC, so they don't have to share the sweet profit. And now they're making cards that will only exist in those Secret Lairs, which at the time was how it worked.
Yeah, I can't remember whether right then or if it had to come later that they said, eventually we are going to print functionally identical cards of these in a conventional Magic product.
It was later, but I don't remember how much later.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know if any of the Walking Dead ones have come around again.
I think they have, yeah.
Some of the Stranger Things ones did.
Oh, maybe
like
that's it.
Some of the Stranger Things ones have, like, very soon after. Maybe not. I don't know if all of them, but at least some of them. But I don't know if any of the Walking Dead ones have come back around.
Yeah, but the problem with that is the way they come around is as a random inserts in this other thing that I have a problem with later. So it's not like they're reprinting them in the way that's like you're able to get in any meaningful way easily.
Oh, you're right. That is how the Stranger Things one works on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at least they are reprinting them so they're not gone forever, but they're not making them in any way simple to get.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't involve shelling out for super rare singles. So yeah. Once they started printing exclusive cards in them, I got completely disgusted, and I think that is where. Whoa.
Yeah, and for that, the point was driven
that?
home even more when soon after that, one of the cards from the Walking Dead set was showing up in a for real competitive deck.
Yeah. Excuse me. I sucked in some air and it choked me. I don't know what that was about. But yeah, when the Walking Dead thing happened and they showed that they were totally going to be printing cards exclusively in Secret Lairs, that's when I turned on WotC completely and lost all interest in anything they were ever doing. For me personally, I know that was the point that happened. It wasn't the fact that the Walking Dead cards were Magic cards based on another IP. That actually doesn't bother me at all. What bothers me was the exclusivity and of how to get them. And the fact that at least one of them, like Mike said, was legacy playable is a serious problem.
Yeah. Like the whole... when they did the crossover with Godzilla, I was okay with that because it was like, it didn't change any of the cards at all.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, some of these cards have an alternate version.
Yeah, and Ikoria was all about monsters anyway, so...
Right.
Yeah. And who doesn't love
And
Godzilla, right?
And maybe I want the guy, and they did it with Innistrad and the Dracula cards in the Vampire set, Crimson Vow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, kind of a cool concept, but if I want to have the Sorin card, it doesn't have to be the Count Dracula version of it. It can be the Sorin. I still get to play with that card. And then if somebody wants to spend a little more or trade harder for the other one, good on them. Don't have a problem with it. I can still play with the card and get the same functionality of it. But if I don't buy the Walking Dead and get that particular card. I don't have it. I don't have a functionally identical one um, until they choose to release it again.
Yeah. Exactly what he said.
Yep.
Getting away from the secret layers, the masterpieces bothered me a lot. By the way, Dirk, you alive? We just haven't heard you say anything in a while. Dirk is not alive.
Guess not. Yeah.
Dirk
Oh,
be
sorry.
done
I had
dozed
myself
off.
muted right then. No, I'm here and everything is just like Chewie said. I haven't bought Magic in a really long time, and it mostly is in terms of like finances and all that. But like I was into getting the commander sets, and then I realized at some point that it didn't really matter because now the commanders are sort of becoming so niche that you really can't build your own commander deck because the deck is essentially built. You really can't do much more than just be like, let me modify this deck a little bit. And whereas back in the day, original commander, you could, they were such general commander cards that you could build a deck 15 different ways and it still be, unique, have a different mechanism. So it just feels like the cards that they're making sets and everything to make money. I understand that. I that's its thing. But when you're making them the new cards in such a way that you have to buy all of it. You can't buy just one. You have to buy all of it. We're releasing more cards, so you have to buy it. It does kind of feel like it's become more of a money drain. Or if you are going to still play, you have to kind of pick and choose what you're going to do. If you're going to be a completion collector person who's going to get every card, then I hope you have a really good job.
Right. Dirk jumped ahead there, but all of that, yeah. So yeah, the masterpieces are another thing that felt like just a way to wring money out of people. Not the original Zendikar hidden treasure, buried treasure, whatever the hell they were called. That was just neat. Like they were old cards, not reprints, but old cards that were printed back in the day that were shoved in as, an exclusive surprise. That was just
hidden
cool.
treasures or whatever that was. Yeah.
Yeah. But then years later, they brought that idea back with masterpieces that were just alternate art, and I think they were foil, maybe shiny versions of
I
old
still
cards.
I still think that was fine and cool when they were just being in. They would show up, one or two in a case. I think that was the frequency, something like that.
It was something like that.
Just in normal booster packs. I thought that was a fine, just exciting thing. You open one up and you either keep it as an awesome thing that very few other people have, or you sell it to the shop or trade up or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like for the player who gets one, yeah, it's neat. But like the whole thing was just to make people buy more cases, which I know is the point, but it was another of those like zero effort lottery FOMO things.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's just something about the way it was executed that for me makes it less distasteful than the current setup.
Yeah, which I mean that's fine. Although they only lasted like 2 or 3 sets before people got sick of them.
They didn't last very long. Yeah.
Like
I remember they were in Amonkhet, and some of them received a much stronger reaction than others, and I guess it just wasn't paying off the way that they thought it would. So
yeah, and I think the fact that they dropped it so quick is a sign that it really was just a money grab and it didn't grab enough money, so they just quit. Because like it was no effort. Like they had to pay an artist and
And then
a
they
card
do a
frame
different
designer.
templating.
Yeah, and like that was it as far as expenditure. Like maybe there was a
I don't know.
special foiling or something. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm with Mike on this one. Only that, I thought it was kind of neat. I didn't take anything positive or negative away from it, really. More like, but
And on a similar note, the buy a box cards and the box toppers being exclusive cards that aren't in the set. Like back when they were just an alternate art, I thought they were cool. But with I think it was what Fire Song and Sun Speaker or Sun whatever.
Yeah.
Sun Song and
Yeah.
Fire Speaker.
Fire Song and Sun Speaker.
Okay, that one.
Sun Speak Fire Song Speak.
Fire Pants and Sunny Boy. Like I think that was the first one that was exclusive buy a box.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think
so.
the second one was Nexus of Fate.
Yeah, that's where they messed up. Like
that
if they were on the, it's kind of like the jump from, original marketing for Mythics to what they eventually became.
right.
If they stayed at the level of like Fire Song and Sunspeaker, where you're like, hey, that's actually pretty cool, but it's not a must-have, fine. But then I remember when we were looking over the previews of Nexus of Fate, and immediately I was like, no, guys, this is a real deal. You gotta understand. Listen to me.
And he was right.
I think I was like, oh no, they wouldn't do that. I was wrong. Mike was right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a problem with, again, the exclusive cards that you can only get this one way. The fact that it became a tournament staple, and was also a problem because of the foiling. So that, like, they had to issue official proxies in tournaments because the damn thing was so bent. Because there weren't non-foil versions to use. Like, the whole thing was just a giant zoo. And yeah, I think the whole
I remember one WotC person like made some kind of response, showed numbers as like, okay, when really there are more copies of Nexus of Fate than any other individual mythic from the set, but I'm like, okay, but those other mythics are not Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember, like, quoting that on Monday Night Magic as, like, a defense, and I feel so dirty now looking back at younger Chewie. But again, that was before I accepted that WotC didn't care about us. They only care about your money. But like the fact that it became a tournament staple was just shined a light on the problem of these are exclusive cards that you can't get any other way, and we're not going to see them anymore.
Yeah, and it's possible they weren't extensively play tested.
Well, yeah, in the case of that one, yeah. A popular one that people wanted to point at as the beginning of this was when Modern Horizons was printed. And that's the first set that injected new cards into a specific existing format.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which I remember really took me a while to wrap my head around it. Like, okay, you're printing these, and we had seen stuff like that in the Commander sets or Commander products that was never going to be standard legal unless it was reprinted, or modern legal. It was always going to be in Eternal formats, right?
Yeah, but that's just because everything, for the most part, is legal in the Eternal formats. So
right, but this was the first time that these cards were specifically being printed. New cards being printed, but they were not going to be standard legal, but they were going to be modern legal.
Yeah,
which
and
just hurt my head.
And they were pushed beyond all reason, so that you had to have them to play modern.
They were
And
intended to be staples.
yeah, like they made them to break the format and make people need them.
Yeah.
And that is a problem.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Hogok, except not actually R.I.P.
Didn't he get banned like immediately?
It took a lot longer than some people would have liked.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I
Accurate.
thought that actually, because they wanted to give it some time for people to, buy it and then play it and realize how good it was.
Yeah, and there are like entire classes of deck that I just like. Oh well, I guess I'm not going to play that because I don't have Ragavans, and I'm not going to acquire them because that's ridiculous.
Yeah. And this was one of the ones that people cited most often as the start of this slide into evil corporation status and profit above all, was when they took a format that existed as a non-rotating format from Magic's history and injected a bunch of super good new cards into it
You couldn't get any other way.
that you couldn't get any other way, and for no reason. Like Modern was
Yeah.
doing fine at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I don't know why they couldn't just have continued to like cultivate Modern as an eventual replacement for, Legacy finally becoming completely inaccessible. I don't know.
Because then they couldn't make Modern Horizons and
Yeah.
print money. Like, another thing that bothers me is there's now commander decks for literally every set, and they all have exclusive cards that are only in those commander decks for every set. Back in the day, now again we're gonna get old here, but back in the day we got like 4 or 5 commander decks a year at once, and that was it. And that was hard enough to keep up with. And now they just keep vomiting out. Ever since they set Elder Dragon Highlander as commander and made it an officially supported thing, like they've just been vomiting things into commander. Like there's so many legendary creatures in every set these days that are blatantly just there to be for commander. And that's not counting the ones that are in the commander decks. These are the ones in the sets.
Right.
And we've had that discussion in the past too, about how once Wizards realized they could make money off of commander players directly, they just cranked it up to, they went past 11. They're like 15 and are still at that rate. And instead of, sort of like Modern, instead of commander being a thing that used what was there, now there's just a deluge of things that are pinpointed to what, not to what commander players want, but to what Wizards thinks commander players want, which then makes commander players want them. And again, there's so many of those commanders that are whenever you draw a card type thing that just that's part of the reason we don't do story circles much anymore, because so many of the legendaries are, oh well, I guess you're playing that in these 2 colors with right, X type of card that is it obviously deals with. Oh, I guess you play this with enchantments. All right. And again, this is partially, Old Man Yells at Cloud, and I know that. That's what a large part of this episode is me getting upset that things are different now. But not because they're different, but because the philosophy behind WotC making them different has shifted into darker places. Project Booster Fun is another one, when they announced, all right, every set's going to have 3 types of boosters. Your regular boosters, I forget what they're called. Are they called draft boosters?
They're called draft boosters.
Yeah. Your regular boosters are called draft boosters. That hasn't changed. Then there's set boosters. Those are the ones that have cards that aren't from the set. And then there's collector boosters, which have all the shiny stuff and also a bunch of stuff that isn't from the set. And this is the way to get money from the whales and the people who want to pimp out their decks. Awesome. And like that was another one where I was like, really? This is so blatantly just we want more money. Now, I will say it was pointed out. I asked this on Twitter. I wanted some positives to some of these things too. And it was pointed out that the collector boosters having these like alternate versions of cards that are much more desirable to the type of people who would pay lots of money for cards tends to drive down the price of the regular ass version of those cards. So that is a plus. 100%. Yeah. And I was also told
fair about this.
Do what?
Trying to be fair about this.
Yeah. So like that's cool, but I'm 100% certain that that's an unintended side effect. Like WotC did not do this. Hey, this will push down the price of regular rares. That never entered their mind. I'm almost certain. And like I was also told that set boosters are really cool if you're just looking to crack packs, because we said this so much back in the day. Never just crack packs. Like do some kind of draft something with them. Like do a Winston or a Winchester if there's just two of you. Like if there's a bunch of you, get some friends together and do an actual draft. Do something. But set boosters are meant to be cracked, and there's fun stuff in there, and that's awesome. I just think that the name is stupid since they have cards that aren't from the set. But because that's where cards from the list come up. That and collector boosters. And it was also pointed out that if you're only into Commander, then having Commander stuff from every set is actually neat. And I guess if you've got lots and lots of money to burn, then it is. But that's like,
well, if that's the only thing, if that's the only format you really care about, then buying the new Commander decks from each set and some singles, I mean, you're not really spending much. Probably might even be spending less money than someone who is into standard and drafting and stuff would be spending on a new set.
Oh yeah, probably. But like, I don't know how many Commander decks there are in every set these days.
I think there's just 2 for the ones that are associated with the sets.
Okay.
I think.
I think you're right. Yeah. So yeah, like that. Sure, if that's your thing, go for it. It's just the fact that Wizards' idea of catering to all of its different subsets of players is to vomit more and more and more and more things at them for them to buy. Like which isn't really supporting those players. It's just finding ways to monetize those players more. Like when Commander was a thing that we all just did because it was really cool. There wasn't much WotC could do, but like, okay, here's a 5-color legendary every once in a while, and we'd be like, cool. And now, like I said, that they've realized they can monetize those players heavily. It's just a shotgun blast. And that's what it is. That's another of my problems, is that's what it is for everything. Like, I can't even keep up. Like, we did the previews for Dominaria United. We skipped Infinity completely. Part of that was because Mike was on vacation. Part of that was because I despise silver bordered things, just as a rule. Sorry, I just do. I personally don't like them. And talking about them,
I've enjoyed them in the past, and I could honestly care less about this one. So, not to mention fatigue.
Yeah, I think the thing that gets me is that they overly complicated it by having amusements and sticker and ticket stuff in the same set. I think that's too much, like, brand new complicated stuff right next to each other for me to want to manage during a game.
But as Chewie was saying, we didn't cover it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now I found out right before we started the show that there are already previews for Brothers War starting. And I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, man.
Which is at least like a regular set, but it feels crowded out because after Dominaria, there was Infinity and Warhammer.
Yeah, if Infinity hadn't been delayed so long, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Would we,
And
or
yeah,
would we have
Warhammer.
not have to been dealing with something else as well?
Yeah, Warhammer 2, those were supposed to come out months ago. And
Oh,
they
I
got
didn't realize
pushed.
those also got delayed.
Yeah, they got pushed back by several months, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
Well, we're dealing with it now, no matter how it came to be.
Yeah,
And it just feels like too much.
it really does. But like, now another thing that people pointed out as to why for things that they don't like is the crossover of with other IPs, and I have to say something about this. Me, who despises all of WotC's business practices, I have no problem with bringing other IPs into Magic. And that sounds completely counterintuitive, given that it's me, but let me explain. I had a problem with The Walking Dead, but not because it was The Walking Dead, but because it was exclusive cards in a secret lair. Like Warhammer 40k, a set, what is it, 4 commander decks?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's cool, because the Warhammer people will probably pick it up because it's Warhammer, and then some of them might enjoy, like, learn how to play Magic and enjoy it and actually get into Magic. And that feels like a very organic way to get new players and thus have new people to get money out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The D&D set a
Oh,
little
yeah.
while ago, Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, played like a Magic set and introduced dungeons, but otherwise it felt like a Magic set. So that to me wasn't a problem.
And yeah,
And
like,
none of it was exclusive, like have to order it directly from WotC.
yeah. And
So.
like the fact that there are like My Little Pony and Transformers cards and whatnot don't bother me. The fact that you can't get those cards in any sort of meaningful way bugs the hell out of me.
Oh, those were all San Diego Comic-Con things, right?
Maybe, I don't even remember. Like that's another one. San Diego Comic-Con used to be just really awesome versions of cards we already had, and then, oh wait, no, we can make them exclusive. People will want to get them. And then they started selling. I think at one point, didn't they sell packs of the collections of the San Diego Comic-Con cards?
I think so.
Not
I think I remember that.
Via San Diego Comic-Con. It was just give us money and you can have these.
Yeah, they did have small amounts of them available on their website a few times.
Yeah, I think they sold out like within seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the upcoming Lord of the Rings set. I'm almost certain we will talk about that set.
I mean,
even though
it
it's
feels like
even though it's a supplementary thing and we tend to avoid some of those because it's freaking it's Middle Earth. What? That's awesome.
And it will be modern legal.
Which I didn't even realize until Mike said that before the show, and I went, really?
Yeah.
Which is probably another problem.
Yeah.
Because Gandalf.
Because Gandalf.
Say,
yeah, because I said why, and Mike went, Gandalf?
I'm giving Gandalf about 2 months before he's banned in Modern. And maybe, like, restricted in Vintage.
But, like, yeah, I think bringing other IPs, it's not, okay, I'm going to use this terminology, not because the people that are saying this are Nazis. Not at all, but it's just the first thing that popped in my head and it's too good not to say. I'm not one of those, we got to keep magic pure. Like, no, I don't think we do. I really don't. Like, anyone complaining about giant robots and magic, I was like, were you all around in Urza's whatever? Because there were giant robots walking around, zapping things. Like, it's not new.
Dragon Engine, man.
Dragon Engine. But, yeah, I think bringing other IPs in is a way to get more Magic in more people's hands that probably would never have tried Magic. And maybe you'll get, a percentage of those people into Magic. And that's
Mhm.
cool. Like, that's how some of that works. It just is. You get, like, I bought the GameCube version of Soul Calibur 2. Why? Because it had Link in it. And that's awesome. I'm pretty sure Link being in it is the only reason I bought Soul Calibur 2, although I probably would have gotten it anyway, but it would have been a maybe. But I definitely picked it up because there was Link. So, like, that's just a
Yeah.
normal thing.
And my brother was glad to get the PlayStation version because it had Heihachi.
Your brother's so weird.
He is.
Although, now that I've learned more about Heihachi in the intervening years, that's actually pretty true. Yeah, the whole Mishima family is just ridiculous, and I love it. but yeah, like I think crossing over with IPs is with other IPs is fine, as long as it's done in a way that's consumer friendly.
I just don't think I'm a fan of secret lair drops, period. But maybe that's me.
I mean, I am not. Again, the way they're marketed is 100% anti-consumer. It's pro-capitalism. But
Yeah. And they're not they're not going to do it in a way that doesn't make any sense. Like Batman is not going to join the Gatewatch and be part of a multi-set storyline. No.
Oh, dang it, man. Crushing my hopes and dreams. Now I want to see an Oath of Batman card.
is it
It just
bad that
says-
I do too now? Not because he joined the Gatewatch. I just want to see what that card would look like.
Well, I'm picturing the flavor text. For Martha's sake, I will keep watch.
And then
Oh.
and then the flavor text would be like, "Why did you say that name, Superman?" But yeah, like, this has just been me ranting about Wizards of the Coast, but I really do think, especially with that announcement from the investors thing, I think that it's blatant that they are literally just trying to get as much money out of their players and collectors and whales as they can before the whole thing folds. Like,
Which is really sad because the game has had such longevity for such a long time. They've even joked, like, we're running out of ideas, JK, and the game has quote unquote died so many times and it's still going. But this feels very much a hey, that fetid calf is looking pretty fat right there, time to do what you do to fatted calves. Milker? I don't know.
probably, yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
I think you put it in a funny hat and take pictures.
Yes. Dress it up like Batman. But not to get too far, it's a concerning move.
Yeah, and it
That
has
they're-
been for a while. And I think it started when
Yeah.
Chris Cox took over as president, because Chris Cox came from Microsoft, I want to say.
I think you're right.
And that's when it became clear that
Yeah.
Hasbro was leaning on them to give us all the money.
Yeah.
Now,
But
I'm not saying anything bad about anyone working at Wizards of the Coast, like the designers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like,
Not a single thing that we've talked about is talking about like bad design.
yeah, no. This is all
Screw you, Ken Nagel.
yeah. Rosewater, you shill. Although Rosewater is probably gonna die a company man, but that's beside
Hey,
the point.
That's part of his thing.
It really is. So yeah, I'm not. I don't want to make anybody working at Wizards of the Coast feel bad for what they do unless they're executives who are making these topics. Okay, we're going to start milking people for all they're worth. Those people can go to hell. But I think, like, in our group chat earlier, Clues and Bill and I, Clues pointed something out here, and I'm just going to read this. He says, somewhere along the lines, WotC or Hasbro realized that the vast majority of their sales are to 1, kitchen table players, 2, whales, a very distant 3, tournament players.
Mm-hmm.
Kitchen table folks love to buy neat things, so let's just flood the place with neat things, like 800 new commander decks per year. Whales will buy anything FOMO, so let's just start to turn up that knob and see how high it'll go. 8 secret layers per season? Sure. What about kitchen table whales? Let's take a page from Fortnite and just smash IPs into each other and see what happens. What happens is simple. Profit. Clearly, Clues has a much different view on bringing other IPs into Magic than I do. Which, I mean, you guys... and it's perfectly natural to feel that way. That's just my take on it. But anyway...
Different viewpoints, yeah.
Yeah. Clues goes on to say, I recognize that they are a business and need to make money. But it used to be that making money was a mechanism to make more game. Now the game is simply an engine to make money. Money is the end goal. And yeah, at some point in the future, a switch flipped from what's best for players to what's best for our pockets. And again, I don't know exactly when that switch flipped. I don't think it's really a switch. I think it was a gradual just shift from what's good for players to what puts more money in our pockets. Because they've made a lot of decisions that are just not good for players. Unless what's good for players is what makes them spend more money.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bill points out that Hasbro is relying on WotC to shore up the bad parts of its business, which is turning into the MTG money fountain, and to a lesser extent, let's screw up D&D the same way. But he says the money isn't likely even going back into WotC. It's just into the shareholders to keep those big calls running, and yeah, that's. Back in the day, I'd have been like, yes, let's buy more of these things because then WotC will get more money and they can do more things. But WotC's not getting any of this money. 50% increase in profits. Yeah, I have no way to end this. I have no point, like, other than pointing out individually, most of the stuff isn't all that bad. But when taken as a whole, it paints a picture of give us all your money. Like, they don't want lots of money, they want all the money. And that is a troubling trend. And it's been pointed out, well, they're a company and we're in capitalism and they have to show growth. Yeah, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem that extends beyond Wizards of the Coast, but, like, they don't have to try to suck all the money out of you. Like, even before the world ended in 2019, before we killed Monday Night Magic, Bill was convinced that Hasbro was just building up to suck as much money out of players as they could, and then kill Paper Magic, and then sell off the remnants of Wizards of the Coast. Which, you think I'm cynical? Did you hear that? Like, even I was like, I don't think that's it, man.
No, I mean, if this becomes unsustainable and the money flow into Magic collapses, it's not going to be a complete collapse. It's going to drop down to a level that's still a lot of money, but just not the tons of money.
Yeah.
that they might start be seeing it now and in the near future by doing this stuff.
Exactly. Excuse me, I've been all emphatic and now I'm losing my voice. So, how about you guys? You have anything else that we should add, or any other feelings, or anything that you disagree with me on any of that? Like, feel free to fire it out.
All I would say is just kind of taking it. It's like you said. What we just saw in the last couple of days is kind of shocking. But when you look at this, it does show that there's this trend over a period of time when they were trying something. It what might work maybe for a little while, maybe not, like the masterpieces or whatever. But even with all of that history, even with from the vault and secret layer and all of that, $1,000 is still shocking. It just is. I'm sorry, it just is. And not in a oh wow, this is amazing sort of way, in a what the hell kind of way. And I don't wish ill on anybody. And if anybody wants to buy this and it's their money, I am not one to tell them what to do. But I I feel like support of this product almost sends the wrong message. And I don't have $1,000 to throw at it, but even if I did, I would not. But that is my take.
Yeah.
$1,000.
I saw some people on Twitter that are usually like WotC cheerleaders who were like, "Did Wizards of the Coast just jump the shark?" And I went, "Huh." So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like yeah, going back to the top of the episode and talking about this the 30th anniversary edition set. It's like I was already disappointed during the 20th year. They missed doing anything big, I feel like. So here we are at 30, and they have this plan. So, all these big celebrations, and here's this wonderful product, but it's like it's a collector's edition that is astonishingly difficult and costly to collect.
Yeah.
Like, wow. And it's what's going on? What was this supposed to do?
Who is this for? And is
Yeah.
this not the biggest,
And why
like, this
and
isn't
why is
for
it being
you?
and why is it being promoted so prominently when it is just for whales, like the
Maybe
largest
that
whales, especially if, and I'm not gonna buy one of these. I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna get online and, watch Post Malone do an unboxing on stream or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just, but it's supposed to be the centerpiece of this big 30th anniversary celebration. But what even is this? What's the
that
point?
maybe that's where, and again, not to say everything we've already said, but maybe that's where I got the whole sense of tone deafness, which maybe I'm using the wrong vocabulary here, but basically that's it. Is like, why why are we promoting this at all? Why is this the centerpiece? Why is this taking over this? Why? Why make this? Why make this now? Why make this like this? And why charge you could still do this at another price point, and maybe like,
Hmm.
why?
If they
Why?
wanted,
That's
if
the
they wanted to do $1,000 for a fixed set like the set.
Yeah.
Sure, okay, I'm not going to buy it. That's too much. But I understand it.
Yeah.
I know there are many people out there who can and will. Some of them probably shouldn't, but they will anyway.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But 60 random cards? No.
No. Nope.
It's a weird product. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's not for us, Mike.
Clearly.
Yeah.
I don't know who it is for, but
I forgot to even go into the whole "oh, it's not for you" thing that has become the mantra of people who are all set to defend WotC no matter what.
I mean,
But I
sometimes
really-
that is a legitimate answer, but it is used as a cop
Yeah.
out way too often.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I get when people were complaining about Commander Tower, I'm like, not every card has to be for every player forever. That's one thing. That's talking about a specific format.
Yeah.
This is
That was
And that
so
was the-
weird. That was legacy players complaining that the command tower was a card that didn't do anything in legacy.
yeah.
And I'm
But,
like,
Okay.
there are so many cards that don't do anything in legacy from a
Yeah.
functional standpoint. That why would
But-
it bother you that there's a land that literally
Yeah.
does nothing in legacy? Like what?
Yeah. But this is different. This is I just don't know who this is for. You say the whales, but do the whales want 60 cards they can't play?
I mean,
I
the
Dude, I don't
whales.
know.
The whales
I don't
want
know any of them personally.
the whales want anything that is exclusive. Like, oh, look what I
Yeah.
got. Like,
And not just to
guess.
lord it over people, but also just the thrill of having it.
I mean,
I
not
guess,
just.
but-
There are some that it'll be just to lord over people.
Yes.
And I think we know some of those from back in the day. But but yeah, I'm not saying that the people who want this are bad. I'm saying if you've got $1,000 to burn, like, give it to me.
There are charities. There is an actual freaking war going on right now, but okay. Whatever.
Yeah. There are entire classes of people out there that are trying to that's some people in this country are trying to make illegal. That's trans people. Like, give to some charities or to some legal things or something to help that out. Or give it to me.
A legal thing.
Cuz like I have been having problems with my wrist for like 3 weeks and I don't have any money to get any like a surgery or something if that's necessary. Like, if I have carpal tunnel, I guess I'll just have to amputate. Like, But anyway. I mean, asking people that have $1,000 to burn to give money away to causes that need it is sort of a lost cause anyway. It's like asking
Whatever.
billionaires to solve world hunger. They're like, there's no money in that.
Clearly.
But anyway.
On that happy note,
Yeah, I think we should probably stop.
maybe we'll talk about something happier next time. I guess that depends on Wizards and what they announce in the next week.
Yeah.
Did we get everyone's final thought? I think we just got me and Brian.
Oh, were those final
Eric,
thoughts? That
are you
wasn't
still awake?
even a call for final thoughts. That was just more on this topic.
Oh, I thought it was a final thought call.
Oh, I mean,
Given
it
the
can be if
hour.
y'all don't have anything else to add.
I have
Oh,
nothing else. I'm about
That's
to
how I
fall asleep.
approached it.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Dirk, you still alive?
Yeah, my part to just add is I stopped collecting Magic cards many, many years ago, and I don't feel any shame. I actually feel pretty good about it. And having also just been like, I'm done with WoW, and there are just several things that I've realized that I enjoyed them back in the day, but I've kind of got to the point where it really does feel like things are kind of being like hammered into the ground, and at that point, it's just not. It's just has lost the excitement. I loved Commander when we did it, but at this point, Commander just doesn't really feel all that fun. And seeing sort of what's been going on with it between all of this and everything else, I have an increasingly less interest in buying Magic products. Because it does sort of feel like we're not as important. We're just sort of we need money. We're just going to throw stuff out and see what sticks and see what we can get from you financially. And I'm kind of just over that. And that's
Yeah.
my final thought.
Yeah. Like I stopped buying Magic a long time ago. Hell, I stopped playing Magic a long time ago. I especially before back when I was, horrible broke right before Lucky's closed, I actually sold off a significant percentage of my collection and just didn't say anything to anybody because I'm not using this and I'm, worried about how I'm going to pay rent for the next couple months. So, And Lucky was like, I mean, I'm still buying cards. I was like, I will bring you some cards. So, yeah, like, we never did get into the other half of this episode that we were gonna do of
No.
other ways to engage with Magic that don't involve buying all the things. So maybe we'll do that at some point.
Maybe we'll do that
in the
next
future.
time. Yeah.
But you could do like us and have a podcast about Magic as a game that you don't necessarily play on a regular basis or at all.
We did play on a regular basis when we started, so
True. Like,
And
don't
we
get
were
me
just
wrong.
about to all play together again before everyone had to stay home.
You're right.
Yeah.
We were doing it like the next week, right?
yeah. Dirk
Yeah.
texted or emailed later like, so when are we getting together? And we're like, not yet.
Yeah. We still getting together next weekend? I don't think so, bruh. So, yeah, like, don't get me wrong. As much as I despise the direction that Wizards of the Coast has gone, I still love Magic as a game and as a concept. I have no interest in playing it really anymore, but that's got nothing to do with the game itself. That's more changes in my tastes as the years have progressed. And I've never had much interest in playing with people that aren't the dorks. Like, pre-releases were neat and all, but that was about it. If someone's like, oh, won't you... When I would go to events, be like, oh, you can bring some Commander decks to play with us. I'd be like, no. Because Magic is the thing I do with these guys, and that's what it is. And without these guys, Magic is not Magic to me. Like, as a game I want to play. So I never got into Arena. That and the early version of Arena sucked. But, I never got into Arena because I don't play Magic to play Magic. I play Magic with these guys. And, if these guys wanted to get together and do anything else, I'd be like, all right, we don't have to. Which is the thing I kept trying to drill into their heads before the world ended. I'm like, we could get together and not just play Magic all day, right? Or we could get together for shorter periods of time and play Magic and do it more often. And that never actually happened. But but yeah. I don't know. I still love Magic and the designers and the characters, and even though I don't read the stories, I'm aware of them, and I dig what I've managed to glean. None of it bothers me in any way. It's just the business decisions of it are reminding me more and more and more of things like EA and Tencent and stuff like that. And that's not a place you want to be. That's bad. So yeah. But hey, speaking of giving me money, patreon.com/themanapool is where you can give me money. You know what? I won't do the spiel. I will just thank our mythic lifeguards: Al, Kim Ho, Scuzzo, John Parker, Jake Jansons, Mike. Nope, scroll too far. Team You, Hellas Are You, Violet Moon, The Beast Father, Aaron Goodwine, Jason Kaus, Andrew Hunt, Cody Buckowing, Casey, Pinball Witch, Jason Doan, Mr. Dr. Lewis, scroll, Connor Kennedy, ALK Alters, and Andrew Ode. Yay. So, yeah, apologies for the dismal tone, and it really was just me ranting about things, but sometimes you just gotta rant about things when things are bad. Like, to be clear, I'm angry about the direction Wizards is taking because I love them and want them to be better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't hear me complaining with passion about how EA is a terrible company, because I don't give a crap about EA. Also, EA's been terrible for like decades. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But like I get down on them and complain about this. I had to say this on Monday Night Magic a lot. Like, we complain about them because we know they can do better. We want them to do better. We want them to be better. And so when they're not, you complain about it. And we get passionate about that, complaining about it. Like, if I didn't care about Wizards of the Coast, we would never have made this episode. So, just as a final thought there, that we do care, and that's why we're so harsh. And I'm pretty sure that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, if you're still here, we really appreciate it. And hopefully you understand why we did this. And if you do, please let me know, because I don't understand. So, but this has been the Mana Pool episode 660. Thank you all so very much for joining us. And don't buy $1,000 boosters. Okay?